Hello and welcome to everyone to the tutorial on doing a galaxy painting similar to this one. Won't be exactly the same, but something similar. So first let's go through our materials. Right here I've got some watercolor paper. It's actually on a pad. You can't really see it in the video, but it's a block of watercolor paper, so it's supposed to keep it from warping a bunch when you use it. This particular paper is a cheaper brand, so it doesn't perform quite as well as some like Arches or others, but it does fairly well. I did this on this paper. It just takes a little more work. I am using the Royal and Langnickel paint brushes. We've got 3 different main sizes. May go in and use a bigger one at the beginning. We're like this size, but we'll see where we go. We will next be using some paints. I really like to use the paints by Art Philosophy Co. They have all different palettes that are pretty fun. This one is the Decadent Pies palette. I also have the Tropicals palette that I really like. We'll probably mostly be using Decadent Pies for this one. And then finally, for the stars, and you can use different things. Sometimes I find it easier, especially for a beginner, to just go through with a little bit of acrylic paint. So I just use it's honestly pretty cheap, just a white acrylic paint. You can find that just at any craft or painting store. And then finally, I've got my little cup of water. You don't need very much. I just use this throughout. So, to get started, I am first going to go through and do the sky. So the sky we're going to do pretty wet. I'll go through first with the water, get everything nice and wet, and then we'll go through and put in the color. So I need to decide what kind of a palette I want this to be. I did this blue and kind of orangey amber color palette for my last one, so I think I want to do a little bit different. So this time I think I'll do more of maybe a coral color with a bit of red. So I'm going to use my hibiscus color from my paints. That's this one. And I'm going to get it wet, and then I'm going to go through and I'm going to start dabbing. Now, when I'm doing this, I'm setting down the framework for the painting. So, as you can see in this, all galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy that we look at, is kind of that similar shape where it's kind of like a triangle. So I'm going to start the framework for that. So I'm going to come through. You can get pretty deep with the color if you want. You don't have to. A lot of it will get washed out with the dark later. So I'll come through here, add some more color where we need it. Add a little more on top. Alright, next I'm going to introduce another color. This time I'm thinking I'll introduce more of a kind of a purpley tone. So I'd probably do either this one or this one. I think I'll do this one. It is called the Patea color. I think I'm saying that right, maybe not. So now I'm going to add that in. And you see it's got kind of a purpley tint, but it still complements the hibiscus. So going through here, I might need a little more water. Just bring it up through. It's okay if it bleeds a little bit. The sky isn't a perfect straight line. And often in my different nature pieces, I like things to be imperfect, because rarely in nature do you find things that are completely perfect. Gonna add some more at top. As you can see with this particular paper, and some papers again don't do this as much because they're higher quality, but as this is drying, it's actually faded quite a bit in color. It was really vibrant when I put it down, but now it's kind of fading. Which, I mean, any paper you will get some of that, but as you can tell, this one's a little bit cheaper, so it kind of fades more. And when you're using different art supplies, I would say get whatever you can afford. You can definitely make things work with cheaper paper. It might just take like a little bit more, I don't know, a little bit more practice or a little bit more playing with it, but you can definitely get a good result. So now I've got the color. We've got a little bit of nice wash going on here. I'm going to start adding in the blue sky. And I can go in later and add in more color if I want, but for right now, I'm just going to stick with that. So I'm going to use the Hurricane color of my paint palette, the Tropicals. And then I'm going to go through and I'm going to lay a groundwork for the blue. So I'll get a little more paint on there. And it looks like my page has started to dry up a bit. So I'm just going to loosen it up a bit more with some more water. And this is another thing with this paper that's not quite as good. It will leave more marks and it dries a little faster. So it just takes a little more working. I'll just keep dabbing in some color and we'll get it the way we want. Alright, I'm going to start adding in a lot more color now. We've got it wet. It's doing better. I'm going to add in some color, the blue, into this red tones. Alright, now I'm going to start adding in the real dark blue. And this is where my Decadent palette comes in. We've got this really dark one. It is called Blackberry. This is actually probably my favorite paint from my two palettes. It's just a real dark blue. And I like to use it instead of black because I think black can be kind of, I don't know, unintriguing and it just is a little plain. But if you can add a little blue to it, it just totally changed the look. Just like a lot of people use Payne's Gray, you might have that in your palette. It's kind of a common one. That is similar where it takes in a bit of kind of a bluish tone and then it just adds some interest to it. As you can tell, I've kind of got some lines starting to form, but as I keep going and adding more color, I'll be able to get rid of some of that. And that too goes along with the paper I'm using, so you may or may not be experiencing something similar. So I'm just going to keep dabbing in color. Alright, now I'm going to bring in my paper towel and I'm going to dab a little bit. I've got some lines kind of going through that I don't love. So if I dab, do you see how it kind of gives it like a little bit of a, I don't know, smudgy look, but it looks more natural. Kind of looks like it could be, you know, clusters of stars or something. So just dab it through. I'm gonna dab the bottom because since my easel's tilted, it's kind of pooling. I don't want that. And you can tell I've been kind of messy with my bottom because I'm gonna go through and do a silhouette on the bottom. I don't need it to be super clean looking because I'm gonna cover all that up. So you could even do your galaxy like all the way down, but it's not necessary either way. Alright, I'm just gonna add in a little bit more of the dark at the top. So now I've got the framework for my sky done, but I want to add in some of the stars to get started, and then I'll do some later. So here's where I'm going to take out my acrylic paint, and I'm going to get my paintbrush a little wet actually, which is kind of different for acrylic, but when you're doing watercolor you want it to kind of blend with it. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to just start painting with it. And I don't want to paint too much down below because I'm going to be going through with the dark watercolor, and I don't want it to be in the way because the watercolor doesn't really like to go over the acrylic. So I'm just going through and I'm just kind of creating my framework of them. I'll go through later and do like some of the individual stars. And I've done different techniques for this. Well, particularly the individual stars. You can do like a masking fluid, which is just like a rubbery substance that you like basically paint on before you do anything else. And then it stays on the painting the entire time, and then at the end you like rub it off and there's all the white spots where it was. So I do that sometimes. Sometimes I'll do just like a toothbrush and flick the white paint on it. It's nice because it gives you a nice like random look, but at the same time you have no control over what's gonna happen. So I think a lot of times I actually prefer just painting in my own because then I have all the control. So I'll put aside my white paint, clean my brush. Now I'm going to go through and I'm going to start doing my silhouette. So I could do something similar to this, the mountains, we've got some trees over here. I think I want to do something different. I think I'm going to do probably some mountains, but I'm going to make them really defined. And I'm going to do them in a reddish tone to really bring that out. So for that, I think I'm going to use my apple color. That one's a really dark, kind of a rusty color. It's one of my favorites. And I'm going to get my paintbrush really saturated in the paint. Just add some water, but not too much. And here I'm gonna go through, I'm gonna, you know, start my framework. So I'm gonna do a real steep mountain. And the nice thing about a silhouette is that you can kind of decide as you go how you want it to look. So you can see where I've painted the white, it doesn't really want to go over it, which will be fine, but I'll have to use some extra saturated paint, and then I'll also have to make it kind of one of the lighter portions of the mountain. Okay, I'm gonna get a bigger brush now to fill it in a little faster before my paint dries. Now that I've got the direction to go. Alright, so as you can see, I'm starting to give it a little bit of a shape. So I'm going to go through here with my dark now. Go through, show some dimension to the mountains, show that there's some depth. Some dark lines. Alright, so now I'm going to go through, I'm going to blow dry it again. So I'll go ahead and do that now. Now I've got the framework of my mountains, I've got the framework of the background, so now we're going to go through and add in the snow, the stars, just kind of any of the extra details. So I'm going to bring out my white paint again, and I'm going to start with the snow first. So I'm going to have the snow come through here because we've got the reflection that would be showing anyways. When I'm doing this, I try to think about all the places where the sun during the day would not meet the snow, so it'd probably still be there. Whereas like the top of the mountain, it might be melted. Alright, now to finish off my mountain. If you can see, I've got a lot of this orangey red down here, but I don't have any of the purple. So I want to bring in a little bit of that color. So I'm going to take my Patea again, get it a little wet, and then I'm just going to drop in a little bit here and there. Now it's not super noticeable, but it'll just give me that little bit of detail that I want. Kind of tie in the top a little bit more. More white in there. Lighten up that spot again. A lot of painting is just about deciding as you go what you need, which can make it daunting because sometimes it's hard to know exactly what you need. Alright, so now we've got the mountain done. we'll move on to the stars. So I'm going to keep my white paint. I'm going to grab a smaller brush. Grab this guy, he's real little. And then we're going to start doing more of the detail work in the sky. Some little dots. Just kind of fill in with more white. And here this can be really, honestly it can be kind of tedious. Depends on how much time you want to spend on it. I probably won't spend too much time. Just give it the feel. Loosen up the sides. Liking how this white now is kind of bringing this together. I really want my sky and my mountains to mesh well together, because I don't want it to look like two different painting styles or, you know, two different paintings put together. So we're just going to make sure we've got similar colors, similar techniques, kind of a sloppy smudginess to it. Go to the top, add some in. Alright, so now we've got it pretty much done. That's how you do a landscape piece, a silhouette with a galaxy background. I hope you enjoyed, and please let me know if you have any questions.